Okay, so this is going to be my StarCraft 20-year anniversary video. And I've been inspired so much by all of the stories and the raves that people that have been playing StarCraft for as long as I have been giving it. And I feel like I would be doing myself a disservice to not give my story for StarCraft. I discovered StarCraft back when I was a child in fifth grade. I remember that one of my best friends was getting married this year. Congratulations, Austin. If you guys have seen my previous videos, he was always the guy that cannoned like the entire map. It's just part of how it goes. He brought it to the computer lab at my middle school, and we were learning things, basic things. You guys, like you younger people that are seeing this video, are gonna laugh. We were learning in school hilarious things like how to set up an email account. Like this is what 90s kids used to do for their computer class. But the kids that knew how to do all that stuff were so far ahead of everybody else in this class that basically while everyone else was learning how to do stuff like this, we all had our section of the computer lab that we were allowed to play the demo version of StarCraft. And it was just a 4 mission campaign. It was the basic stuff up to you use Edmund Duke in a siege tank to take out the Zerg base. And I remember, like, for the first time when I discovered sunken colonies, that sunken colonies would just destroy my Marines so bad, and I'd have to use siege tanks to break through them. And it was, to me, like, whenever I go back and I play StarCraft 1, the very sound of SCVs mining minerals to me creates such a nostalgia because it was something that it blew my mind so incredibly hard when I was a kid that it still to this day makes me think back on it. Um, so from that demo, I remember I saw StarCraft in a store. It was actually it was Tower Records, as a matter of fact, because they had this like gigantic store where I live in California. But it was a $70 price tag, and my parents wouldn't let me have it because I didn't have any of my own money at the time. I was still in middle school, so I wasn't able to get it as soon as it dropped. Instead, I found at Toys R Us, like on sale, I found Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness, and it was only $10. So I was like, it's made by Blizzard. It's the same people. It looks like StarCraft. It's just with swords. Let me get this. So I got it, and it was my first experience with online multiplayer RTS strategy. It taught me a lot of the things that I needed to learn so that when I finally did pick up StarCraft, when it dropped in price, like maybe a few months later, I was able to actually kind of understand the basics of it. Fast forward a little bit, StarCraft's been out for like a year or two, and this same friend that brought the demo version to the computer lab, his father worked as a teacher at the local community college. And we were all in the same Boy Scout troop at the time. And we used to do this thing where while he's teaching his class has a computer lab located right next to it. And this computer lab, I swear to God, you 90s kids are going to love this. It was filled with the old Mac Pros, or the old like Macs that were just one big inbuilt unit inside of a monitor. And we would load up a version of Brood War onto these computers. Oh no, sorry. We would load up a spawned copy of StarCraft with a burned CD of Brood War, and we were able to do this because these my friend and his brothers, his two older brothers, had their StarCraft CD key memorized. So they would load the spawn copy with their memorized CD key onto each computer, and we would then load a copy of Brood War. And we would have to do this every single time because the college would erase the StarCraft on these computers because they're college computers. They're not supposed to be used for video games. They would erase this every single time that after we would leave. And that was the deal. Like, oh, you guys would play, but you were going to erase everything when you're done. cool. We got a couple hours to ourselves in this community college computer lab, and we would do things like have a little one-on-ones here and there. But the big thing, we would do 8-person free for all BGH, and this got real. This got so real. There were agreements that were made. There were no rush policies that were made. There was, we're teaming up as soon as this game starts. So other people had to team up when this alliance was made. There was there was so much politics that went into how these games went, and we took them so seriously. We had no idea how good we were. None of us played like online ladder. It was just, this was the thing that we did when we had the opportunity. So gradually, way before Starcraft 2 came out, we then graduated to our own computers. We'd hook up LANs at like people's houses. There'd be people playing down the hall from each other. Like there'd be like cords, Ethernet cables that would run through the hallway, and you have to be careful not to trip over them. Like, we did so much to make sure that of all the games that we played at the time, and there were others, like, Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers. Super Smash Brothers is my other huge passion. But we loved StarCraft so much, and it became such a huge part of our competitive identities as teenagers, young adults, that it was something that we would go through that extra effort to set up and to make happen. We'd haul the computers. I learned so much about computers. I learned how to type. Like, I got to tell this part. I can type about 70 words a minute. I've had no formal typing training, and I don't use like the classic hand positions or anything else like that. I learned how to type because I needed to know how to communicate with my allies online, and through necessity in online gaming, and it started with StarCraft, I learned how to type. So, skill, like life skill that I will never be able to truly appreciate, I learned how to type thanks to StarCraft. But going back a second, we learned so much about computers just in general, because we all had just basic computers. Like, I had a 2002 Vio. I got it as a graduation gift for middle school. I learned how to customize that thing, how to maintenance that thing, because that was my engine to play the video games that I wanted to, and StarCraft is chief among them. There were some others, but it was mainly StarCraft. Fast forward, we're 2010. We've been playing StarCraft, off and on. We're also doing college at this point. Real life has been like, in the way since then. I never really got into the competitive online scene that existed in StarCraft Brood War, and I wish to this day, like, one of my biggest regrets was that I didn't pursue it as hardcore as some of these other gentlemen did. But fast forward, I get to college. 2010 rolls around, and the StarCraft 2 beta. One of my best friend, his oldest brother Evan, he gets a beta key for it, and he immediately messages all of us. I got a beta key. I go to his apartment. I play. It was the first time I had ever seen it. It was Shakuris Plateau. I load up his account. I start to play. I get roach rushed. I die. Very next game, I discover Marauders. And surprisingly, the same Zerg. Roaches were so overpowered back then. They had 2 base armor, and they regenerated health even when they weren't bird. I was able to hold it the next game. Two different Zerg players. Roach rushed me both times. But it was StarCraft 2. I couldn't get over the graphics, how smooth every unit felt, the music, the brand new music. Even though I was playing Terran, and it wasn't the classic music, somehow the music still felt so right. And then, I get it. I buy my own version of the game. I get my own beta key. I buy it. I'm playing it. Lost Temple, all the horrible maps we had when this game first launched. But I discover GSL for the very first time. My younger brother, who I also brought with me on my StarCraft journey, my personal favorite semi-pro player, he tells me that I need to watch this. He tells me that I need to watch this game that's going on right now. There's a Zerg player named Fruit Dealer, and what he's doing right now, you need to see it. So I'm like, well, how do I watch? Well, I have to download the GOM player, and I got to do all this other different stuff. But I did it, and the pixelation quality on it was awful. This is before Twitch even came out. StarCraft 2 was going off of this one player that you had to download in order to play it. And I remember seeing it. I was enthralled. I loved it. It was cool. And it got me, it introduced me to GSL. And I'm like, well, you know what? Like, if I'm up in the middle of the night and this is going on, cool, let me see it. And it was through GSL that I also discovered Team Liquid and the rest of the like existing community that I had been, to me StarCraft was always myself, my friends. It was a small, tight-knit group around us. I had no idea that this like large community had existed outside of myself. But through the GSL, I discovered Team Liquid. I discovered Reddit later when it came along. I discovered the existing online community that I had been a stranger to for, at this point, like 6 or 7 years. Well, I'm watching GSL, and I had seen a couple of different things during that first season, but the second season of GSL, along comes a young professional using the tag Foxer. And I don't even know, or Boxer, sorry, it wasn't Foxer yet. And I don't know what the significance of Boxer is. I hadn't been following Korean StarCraft, for that whole period of time that I was in college. But I didn't need to know what his tag was or the significance of it. I just needed to see him play. And the very first game I saw it, or going back to the very first time I ever played StarCraft 2, was on Shakura's Plateau. And Boxer, he's being attacked with dozens of banelings. And at the time, Blizzard was even considering nerfing the baneling because of how strong it was versus Terran. Boxer does something revolutionary that I had never seen. And this is a harken back. I've learned my history since then. I understand why this is important. Boxer micros his Marines so that he's able to mitigate the damage that the Banelings do. He splits his Marines so that the Banelings detonate 1-on-1 or 1-on-2, and he's able to roll through Kyrix, his Zerg opponent, with just Marines against a comp he wasn't supposed to be able to beat. And it blew my mind. And from that moment onward, I was hooked. I was hooked on Pro StarCraft. And to this day, I wish that I had been able to know that passion for pro StarCraft play, pro esports, from when StarCraft was just a hobby that me and my friends did. It was our own thing. I wish I had known how big and what StarCraft had meant to so many people just like me around the globe. But I do today, and I appreciate it today. And that organic growth from something that was just a hobby of mine and my friends, it has exploded into this icon of esports. StarCraft is esports. Esports would never have been what it was without StarCraft. And I will always appreciate it, and it will always be a cornerstone of my life. And it's hard to believe that for 2/3 of my life, StarCraft is 20 years old, I'm 30 years old, it has been such a cornerstone of who I am and what competition means to me. Happy birthday, StarCraft. Happy birthday, Blizzard. You guys rocked it, and here's to 20 more.